Well, good evening and welcome to another ACL update. My name's Alister Cameron. As ever, I'm with the wonderful Wendy Francis and with both national directors here at the Australian Christian Lobby. Good evening to you, Wendy.
Good evening to you and to everybody who's listening. Thanks very much for tuning in. We really appreciate seeing those numbers rise of people who are watching, because it just makes what we're doing it makes a difference.
And it's always crazy to think that after about 6, 7, 8,000 people watch the video, if they were gathered in a room, that'd be a very large room. So we're humbled and we're very grateful for you being part of what we're doing. I got a bit of a smile on my face today, Wendy, because we're really running by the seat of our pants today. We've barely got a script or anything. There's so much going on in this election campaign for all of us, not just for us at the ACL, but for the country. I'd hate to be the Prime Minister right now. But as far as we're concerned, we've barely had time to gather a script. So we just really wanted to bring you in to what's going on right now, just to give you a sense of what's going on. So Wendy, just bring us into the world of ACL electioneering and what we do. We're not a political party. We don't do that, but there's a lot going on.
There is, and so at the beginning of the election campaign, long before it actually started really, we went out to you, our supporters, and we said we need some funding if you want us to really make a difference in this election, and you've responded magnificently. And so the task for us is to make sure that we use that money well and wisely. And so really the one who has been organising that, what we do, is Martyn, Dan Flynn, and then down to people like Alister and myself. And so we have concentrated on very strategic electorates. It doesn't mean that we're doing the same number of electorates right around Australia even, but we have really prayed very carefully and researched. We've done polling, and we have worked out where we need to actually go to speak truth into the public space. We're not even really about trying to make people vote in a certain way, but we are about speaking truth, and we believe that it's high time that we had truth returned to our public spaces. And so that being the case, and as Alister just said, we are really flying by the seat of our pants, because every day things are changing in the election campaign, but not our specific target and not our big picture. So our big picture has us going into a number of electorates with flyers. We have the sides of trucks in some electorates that are going around with a mirror image of what our flyer says. We're going out with a second flyer in those electorates. We are calling into those electorates, both to our own supporters, but also to the general public. And all of this has generated a lot of media interest, and not only media interest, but the parties are really speaking to us, because the parties are noticing the difference. They're watching the needle go in these electorates as well. And so, I mean, some of the truth telling that we're telling is, about the religious discrimination bill, for instance, and particularly the impact that some of the voting is going to have on Christian schools, schools of faith. And so, in all of that truth telling, the parties are watching the polling and the needle move. And so they're getting in touch with us and saying, look, can we talk about this? And so that's a good outcome as well for us, particularly post-election, that we can form these relationships and have an impact in truth in our public spaces, particularly in things like religious discrimination, but also our education, our health. And so, I think probably Alister and I will talk a little bit more about some of the questions and some of the answers that we're getting as well. So that's probably, in a nutshell, I think what we're doing, Alister, what we've taken on to do, and what we, Lord willing, will achieve.
And we've also got some candidate forums, Wendy, that we're organising. There's one that's just, we had one that happened up in Queensland. There's another one happening, or has happened, in Chisholm. Can't remember whether it's happened yet. Another in Tassie.
Yeah, Chisholm is next week, and I'm really hoping to get people there as well for that one. That'll be a biggie. And
you'll be coming down for that too, I gather. Yeah.
Gold Coast one was huge. We had close to 800 people there at the Gold Coast. It was pretty packed out. And we are having forums in South Australia and also Tasmania. We've got an online forum in the Northern Territory. So we're trying to be very strategic with particularly the senators that we see as being really important to support in this election. And so seeking to have candidate forums where they would be able to come and present their message to the electorate.
Yeah. And look, folks, just to repeat a point as far as the ACL is concerned, for those of you that wonder, we're not a political party, we're a lobby group. So we can't tell you how to vote. Well, the way I put it is, we can inform, but we can't instruct. And so when we inform, we're bringing to clarity what is happening among parties and about individual candidates, so that you can then go into the polling booth and you can make a prayerful, a considerate and informed vote. I might just draw your attention while we're here, folks, to a website which we have just launched. It reflects the fact that about 2 weeks ago, once we knew when the candidates were locked in, and the AEC doesn't give you very long, the candidate nominations deadline was 2 Thursdays ago, which is only a week and a bit ago, and the AEC very quickly then put the golf balls in the machine, which determines the order of the names on the ballot. And only then really did we know who all the candidates were. And then we furiously started to pursue them for contact details so that we could send them out a questionnaire. So Wendy put together a 21 question questionnaire, and we're happy to sort of walk you through, and I'll show you in a minute what those questions were. But essentially that has allowed us to get a clear idea of what the candidates think about the issues that are, we think, most particularly relevant to Australian Christians and anybody of a sort of a conservative, socially conservative sort of disposition. Is that a reasonable way of putting it, Wendy?
Yeah, it is. But when you say that, it sounds so easy. But I think there's over 1,000 candidates across the nation. Would I be right in saying that?
I think if you include the fact that the Senate is split into states and territories, and so there's lots of candidates for that as well. There's over 1,000 just in the lower house. So I think it's approaching 1,500 across the whole country. That's a lot of people to go and find contact details for and convince to complete a questionnaire.
Yeah. I think if anybody who's done a spreadsheet, their mind is whirling right now.
Now, there are a lot of groups out there who are looking to survey what candidates for political office believe about things, what their parties believe about things. There are rumours that some political parties will not allow their candidates to fill out questionnaires. There are parties that do that and candidates fill them out anyway. And then the reverse is true. Parties that are happy for their candidates to do so and the candidates can't be bothered. So what we're actually going to say today, Wendy, among other things, is, hey, if you are connected to a candidate, tell them that there's an ACL questionnaire which we'd really like to put in their hands. Tell them that we've made some significant effort to find their contact details. If you know contact details for somebody, email us. The email address is in the show notes, but it's natoffice, N-A-T-office @acl.org.au, and we will get that questionnaire sent out to them. But what our commitment to you is that in as much as we've said, hey guys, the ACL strategy this election is, and it probably will be for every other election, I dare say, people before parties. We really want you to focus on the individuals. Have a look at Wendy's video, which explains how to vote, and it reiterates that point. Very, very powerful video, just in terms of simply understanding how the voting system works and how you can have your say. But as far as that strategy of people before parties, that's really, really important. We want people of integrity. We want people that share our values in political office, no matter what the party. So I encourage you to really, get your head around that. But accordingly, it is really important that they all get that questionnaire and have an opportunity to answer it. And it's a typically very difficult thing to do. And that's where we really want to turn it over to you, Australia, and say, hey, if you want to understand where candidates stand on these issues, then if you can in any way get in touch with them, and encourage them to vote. The more people they hear from, the more they're going to say, oh, I think I should fill out this questionnaire. That sounds about reasonable, I think, Wendy.
And it's actually a really easy one. Alister is a computer whiz, amongst many other things that he is. And so it's an online form. And so in years past, in elections past, we've asked candidates for like 20 words or less on what you think about such and such. And sometimes that's just like in the busyness of running your own campaign, it's just a step too far to go. This time it's just a very simple click, yes or no, true or false. So we've made it really easy. It really should be something that's done in like 5 minutes time.
That's right. Now, what we then do is we bring all those results together and we compile them onto a website. And here it is, vote.acl.org.au, vote.acl.org.au in the show notes. Now, what this website does is it really allows you, in as simple as possible a way, to identify what electorate you're in, and then go and have a look at the questionnaire results for each of those candidates, as much as we've been able to gather anyway, to our earlier point. If you don't know your address, then you can simply type it in. I'll put in a silly one just for the sake of it. 123 Smith Street. Let's see what that brings up. Oh, there's a few of those in Australia. Here you go. I don't know where's Cleveland, Wendy? Is that a nice place to live?
Very nice. It's by the bay. It's very beautiful.
All right. Well, it turns out that Cleveland is in the division of Bowman. So you didn't even have to know you were in the division of Bowman. It just sends you there. And when we get to the division of Bowman, we find that 2 out of 6 people on the lower house ballot have completed our survey form. And so this is the order in which those 6 people will appear on your ballot when you go into the voting booth. That's how we order it. And you'll see that Walter Todd for Pauline Hanson's One Nation got the first spot, all the way down to Donisha Duff for the ALP at the bottom. But 2 of them have completed the survey results. You've got Mary Jane Stevens for UAP and Henry Pike for the Lib Nationals, the Lib Nats. And so
Henry Pike is replacing Andrew Lanning for the people. They will know that in Bowman, but that's an interesting seat, actually. Yeah, Henry's a good guy.
Got it. So the way it works is if the colour of the bar is red, they've not done a great job, as far as our values are concerned. If the bar is orange, they've done a reasonable job. And if it's green, they've done well. So in the case of Henry Pike, we may want to see, okay, he's answered 18 out of 21 in a positive way, in other words, affirming our values. What does that look like in more detail? So you can simply scroll out by clicking that link, and you can actually see how he answered the survey. So these are the questions that we put to all the candidates, and we're very simply asking them yes/no questions. We recognize that that can be challenging for folks that like to live in the grey spaces in between yes and no, but just for the sake of simplicity, we felt that it was the easiest way to do it and would make it not burdensome on people and not hard for us to give you the results. So in this case, you can see he's got a good track record on all these different things. And there's a couple here where, for whatever reason, he's disagreed with us on Afghanistan, on the mature minor policy, and on advertising standards. But that gives you an opportunity. If you are in Bowman, you may want to get on the phone to Henry and say, what's that about? It's up to you. But for every one of the candidates, it's the same. When they do answer, they get those questions. Now, if you scroll down, you also have a look at the Senate ballot paper. And this is the Queensland one. It's the same for everybody in Queensland. And it lists people in the order that they will appear on the ballot. So position A was for an unnamed grouping of 2 people, then the Socialist Alliance, and so forth as you go down. And I don't think we've got many Senate responses in Canberra yet. Jack Crichton for TNL has replied, and he's got a perfectly clean bill of health there, and you can keep going down. So what we're really hoping and praying is that this will fill up as we go. It tends to be the ones that are most enthusiastic to fill this out, Wendy, are, fancy that, conservatively minded Christians.
And often the minor parties as well, because they don't get as much platform, so they don't get as much airtime, so they're always really keen as well.
Yeah, there's another one for the Lib Dems. So there you go, folks. That is, I'm just going to scroll back to the top, but that is the website that you're looking for. If you want to start to try someone else's address, you can go back to the front. It also includes, Wendy, your video there as well. I'm also just going to point out that if you go to our homepage at acl.org.au, this is in the process of being changed, but there are 4 tiles that you can see here on the front of our website, and that's what you get when you first visit our website. You get a little splash to welcome you. That's a video where Martyn really unpacks our federal election strategy in details. There's a donation form. To your point earlier, Wendy, these things are not cheap. We've put a sort of a $1 million target, which is a fairly accurate sort of picture of the money that we're spending. We've hit about 600,000, so just an incredible thank you to those of you that have contributed. For those of you that have not, it is definitely not too late. We'd really love you to be a part and express your participation with us in that way, and that's what that's for. And then how MPs voted as well on the religious discrimination bill, which is a very important piece behind the way that we have chosen certain candidates that we are informing you about. both positively and negatively, as we've also talked about with the flyers and so forth.
Yeah, the other thing to say about that, how MPs voted, is that check with us about that too if you're concerned about your Member of Parliament, because in some cases the Member of Parliament was absent from Parliament because of COVID or some other reason. So just because they didn't vote, sometimes it's because it was an unavoidable not vote. So, we tried to sort of cover all the contingencies, but let us know if you're concerned about that at all, or you think that we might have got something wrong. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So just a repeat of our point, if you are in contact with candidates for office in this election, just give them a poke, let them know that there's a questionnaire from us. If they haven't received one, and you can get their email address, they can request it of us. You can request it on their behalf. That'd be really good. Wendy, what can we look forward to in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, ahead of Election Day?
Well, I think every day is changing. Of course, there are so many other things going on around the world at the moment that are still taking our eyes a bit higher and a bit bigger too. But certainly for ACL, we will continue to put up the answers to these questions. I might just touch on it, just a couple of the questions, the sort of thing that we've asked, so that people are aware of what we're sort of asking. We ask questions about, for instance, do the candidates support ongoing commitment to chaplains? We ask whether, we've got a lot of questions about parental consent, particularly for mandatory consent education, but also for their health record. At the moment, if once your child turns 14, a parent no longer has access to their health record. We're very concerned about that. And the mature minor policy allows our children to make massive decisions regarding their health without their parents' permission, but also without their parents' knowledge. So we're asking questions about that. We're asking certainly about religious discrimination and the impact that it has on Christian schools particularly. We're also asking about women. Should biological women have safe spaces, particularly vulnerable women who may have been engaged in, been a victim of domestic violence. But we're also asking just it's a true or false question. A woman is an adult female, is true or false? Surprising that we have to ask these questions in this day and age. And it hasn't been the parliamentarians as much as the bureaucrats who have been really confusing us with that one. But yeah, so we've got all of that. And of course, as we ask the questions, the media then pick up on that. And what we find is that the leaders of the party in particular, but also the members of the party, they come out with statements in the media, and we're able to sort of grasp hold of them and keep a track of what they've said, so that post-election, whichever party is in power, we can go back to them with, this is what you said, how can we work with you to make this happen? And so, for instance, the Prime Minister came out talking about online protection for our children, and we've been hammering on about this for a few years now. More than a few years, but certainly it was the beginning of 2020 when the age verification laws were recommended by the Protecting the Innocence of Children report, Protecting the Age of Innocence. And so we've been really trying to get that through, and it looks like they're starting to say, if elected, we will do that. So that's the sort of thing we are constantly watching the media, seeing what they're saying, keep a track of what they're saying, who's saying it, so we can go back afterwards and say, okay, how can we help you make this happen? Because we want to be a help. We're not here just trying to pick on people. We actually want to really be a help, because our whole focus is to speak truth in the public spaces, and the reason for that is because God tells us to seek the peace and prosperity of the place where we are, because when it flourishes, then we will flourish and our whole community will flourish, and we want our Australian nation to flourish.
That's really, really good. I was also going to mention that our Managing Director, Martyn Iles, has been very, very busy travelling around in the last week, speaking at March for Life in Brisbane, and headed to other similar events around the place. Also interviewing a number of key senators, interesting senators. In some cases, people, really that have a tremendous track record in Parliament and for various different reasons align quite closely with Christian values or are self-professed Christians and deserving of some highlighting. And so really encourage you to look out for those interviews. We're putting them up on Facebook. We're putting them up on YouTube as well. Our YouTube channel and our Facebook page are both AC Lobby. Often on social media, we are AC Lobby if you're looking for us. So really would encourage folks to have a look at those videos. Now, one other thing that I thought I would just bring to the table, Wendy, was the question of voting below the line in the Senate. Now, you raised that in your training video, and that was really, really excellent. It can get quite technical, and I don't want to get all elaborately technical, but there will be people, and there are people who, for very, very good reason, have said we have particular senators that are our friends, or we really align very closely with them on values. We would like to vote for those people, but it involves going below the line because perhaps the ordering of their political party is such and so forth. Can you just maybe just walk us once through again, just what's the basic thing between voting above and below the line on the Senate ticket, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, that's really good, because even in the video we were trying to keep it short enough so that it did serve a purpose. But the Senate paper can be quite confusing for people. So it's the long white one, the very long white one. And there are two options. So on the green paper that you have, that's the House of Representatives. Very simple, one option, fill every box, your choice of preferences. But in the Senate, you can either vote above the line or you can vote below the line. You don't vote both, you just choose above or below. Now above, you're going to have just a long line of parties, but also groups of people. And so people can group themselves together, because independents, if you're just one independent senator, you won't get above the line. You have to be part of a collaborative. You have to be part of a party or a group. And so above the line, you're going to have be able to put number 1 in party, for your choice of party or group. So if you put 1 for, let's just pick a random, let's put, I was going to say ACL, but I don't want to confuse it because we're not a party, but let's say 1, 2, 3. Let's say the Christian Church. Christian Church has a party, let's say that. And so if you put number 1 in Christian Party, and the Christian Party have 3 senators, then your vote will go 1, 2, 3 for those 3 senators. Below the line, if you were going to choose which senator, you'd have to actually choose 1 for whichever one you wanted. I think I'm getting a little bit, I don't want to confuse people. So above the line, you've got all of the parties, and you just put a 1 in the parties that you want. You need to vote for 6 people. You need to have 6 numbers.
At a minimum.
Sorry?
At a minimum.
As a minimum. So you can fill in all the boxes above, but as a minimum you have to put in 6. And what you need to remember is that the 6 that you put in need to be your top 6. So your top 6 picks for parties or groups for the Senate. And then if you choose to go below the line, that's when you can actually choose individual people. So then you would be able to choose, I mean, one of the interviews that Martyn is doing is with Zed Sezelja. So you could choose to put 1 there if you're in his, if you're in Canberra, in the ACT.
Okay. Now, the point about voting below the line is you can change the order that the party proposed. So the Australian Electoral Commission is instructed by each of the parties, or they do some of their own work as far as groups go, but they are instructed as to what that order should be. But if you disagree with that order, that would normally be, Wendy, the reason why people go below the line, I'm assuming. They want to change the order to put a senator that they prefer, or sorry, I should say Senate candidate that they prefer, over and against another in that list. Again, number as many as you like, but a minimum of 12 in the lower house. I just want to make one point that is a bit of a technical point, but it's one that a number of people have asked. What is it to have a Senate ballot exhaust? And really what that simply means is this: you may only number, let's say above the line, 6 parties. That's it. And you may have 6 parties that are your favorites, But if they're all very small parties, if they're all very minor parties or groupings of independents, and once all of your preferences have been accounted for, that still doesn't represent a fully franked vote for someone who's reached Senate quota, that's it. That's as far as your ticket goes. It's an empty ballot now. You didn't provide enough information. You didn't keep going far enough. And it just happened that the 6 that you voted for, once that collapsed down, you've run out. So what we encourage people to do is somewhere in the number of parties that you choose, either keep going long enough, or if you're only going to vote for a few, include a larger group, a larger party, or a significant party in there, so that you don't risk exhausting your vote. There is a little bit involved in this. Go find an expert if you're still asking questions, or shoot us an email. But we would hate to see you go to this effort and then not have your vote count. So did that sound like a reasonable explanation?
Oh, I hope so. Honestly, if people have questions, send them through to us, because we really want to help you with this. But, as Alister says, if you vote below the line and you vote for 12, a minimum of 12, then you can vote for people from different parties. You don't have to have the whole ticket of the major party or the whole ticket of your minor party. You can vote 1, 2, different people from different parties. So you can choose very specifically who you want to vote for below the line. But don't feel overwhelmed by it, because if you want to just vote above the line and vote 6, as Alister says, choose 6 and choose well and prayerfully. Yeah, that's what I'd say to you.
Now, I'm just looking over here because I've got the calendar on the wall here, Wendy. I think it's this weekend that pre-polls open, and I believe that postal's already open. So there are folks already casting their vote, and we really do want the vote.acl.org.au website out there with as much information on it, immediately. But our focus for the next few days will be to get as many of those candidate responses in, because we really think that's the best thing we can do. If we're telling you to put people before parties, we do want to give you as much information as we can on those people. It's over to them ultimately, but just to assure you that we're doing the best that we can to help you. Wendy, any other thoughts?
So, we are also asking the parties, and so we will have party positions as well. Yes. But we've seen in this previous parliament, quite literally, particularly with the religious discrimination bill, the party had one position. So the coalition party had one position. Some of its members voted completely different. So just because there is a party position, it doesn't mean that each member is going to stick by the party position. That's why we've gone to the people, and that's why we're saying people before parties.
Yeah. Very good. Well, look, we're a bit. This is a smaller, slightly quicker segment this week, but that's okay. There's so much going on around here. Any final thoughts to add for this week, Wendy?
Oh, I just hope that we've been able to be a help, and I hope in this election coming up that you feel grateful for the opportunity that you can take part in such an amazing democratic process that we have. But yeah, don't waste your vote. Make it count, just like we want to make every day count for the Lord. Thank you.
Yeah. So everyone, we'll be back next week. We'll keep you tracking on everything that's going on, and there's a lot going on. Keep an eye on that website. Share it far and wide. Be watching the videos, the interviews that Martyn's doing, also that strategy video that he put out, and all of these things will be linked for you in the show notes. We look forward to seeing you next week. Please also be prayerful for us. We're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Lots of it's like that duck, elegant on the surface, but underneath paddling like crazy. And never a dull moment. So anyway, God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.